Welcome to the second of our Higher Ground webinar series. Today we're going to talk about transitioning from the old story, a story that is clearly wobbling, if not yet dying, to new stories that are being born. Stories that offer new possibilities, new options, and new levels of consciousness. Indeed, as we learned from all of our guest speakers and collaborators during Higher Ground Live, the first program in this series, and as an increasing number of us are admitting based on our personal experiences in the world around us today, there's a seismic shift occurring. Many of the old stories' flaws, the habituated practices, and the insufficiencies that have brought us to this time, and all of the resulting confusions and divisions and regressions that now have our attention. But Sedena and Nathan and I, and many of you, are also coming to the conclusion that there's some very good news in all of this. And a growing number of us are finally waking up and admitting that it's time to address some of these flaws, to take greater responsibility individually and collectively for the unhealed wounds that obstruct our progress, and become more aware and responsible to those who, for all the seeming advances in science, technology, transportation, and innovation, have been part of the old story. And they've also been left behind to languish in lives that are challenging and painful. But thankfully, these and other things are now out in the open for all of us to see. And while they're bringing discomfort and challenge to many of us, they're also leading to bubbling up of new stories that are leading all of us, if we pay attention, toward a more positive, sane, sustainable, and abundant way of life. And not just for some, but for all. This is why Sedena, Nathan, and I are clear that if individually and collectively we truly want to navigate these uncharted waters, if we want to encourage the birth of those new stories, and do what we need to move beyond the limitations, we'll be wise to reach more deeply into our hearts as well as our heads, tap into that reservoir of courage, express commitment, greater consciousness, and agree to take greater responsibility and accountability for our own well-being, for the well-being of others, for the health of our planet, and for the values, principles, and privilege that make this nation and our democracy a unique experiment in individual empowerment and conscious governance.
So, in our time together, we're going to talk about some of these things. And first, we're going to share with you some of the valuable information that many of you took the time to share with us on the questionnaire that we offered at Higher Ground Live. And you completed that, and we want to thank you for participating so enthusiastically and remind you, those of you who haven't had a chance to watch Higher Ground Live, contribute your thoughts and ideas, that you can still watch that first webinar and fill out a questionnaire by clicking on the link below this screen. We're also going to talk about some practical and realistic things that we can all do to make sense of these times, turn the obstacles we face into opportunities, and convert some of the confusion and concern that we may be feeling into positive action. Then we're going to talk some more about some aspects of the old story that George mentioned that are falling away, while some of the new ones are growing stronger every day. We're also going to talk about how these new stories differ in regard to the core values that they're advancing, the goals and objectives they're promoting, and the level of ethics and consciousness they're offering. A little later, we're going to share a segment from an interview we did with two remarkable wisdom keepers, Grandmother Flordemayo, a beloved indigenous elder, and the internationally renowned Master Mingtong Gu, who will share some insights and practices that can help us all in these times. And it was really fun to be with them. You're going to love that.
So before we give you an overview on the information and recommendations you shared with us in the Higher Ground Live questionnaire, we thought we'd start with a short prayer for the well-being of the earth and all of humanity that Grandmother Flordemayo shared with us.
Hi, this is Nathan Crane and Sedena Cappannelli with Higher Ground, and today we're incredibly honored to be sitting here with Grandmother Flordemayo. She is an indigenous grandmother who brings wisdom from South America here and shares it all over the world. She's a founder of the Path and the Heritage Seed Project, and she has incredible wisdom and experience to share with us in so many ways. And so we're just very honored to be sitting here with you and ask, if you will, to open up and help everyone connect here for a moment with a prayer or a blessing, if you will, to help all of us think about getting to higher ground and getting to a place of peace within ourselves.
Beloved Creator, thank you for the beauty of the light. Thank you for this beautiful, beautiful light that you are showering upon us here at this sacred moment. Beloved, let's spread this beautiful, beautiful light outside of this area here. I ask of you, beloved Mother, that you look into our hearts and you bless us, that you take your mantle and you protect each and every one around the globe. And I pray, beloved Mother, that our roads are easy roads, so that we, each and every one of us, around the world and in the four directions, can become one with your sacred light, beloved Creator. Thank you for the beauty of who you are, beloved Mother. Thank you for the beautiful, beautiful light of your light being, beloved Mother. Thank you for this beautiful, beautiful, precious moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Everybody can feel that, I'm sure. That's so nice.
Now, as we take a look at some of the information you've shared with us, let's keep in mind some of the things George mentioned earlier. The fact that, as challenging as this time is, it also presents us with a remarkable and long overdue opportunity to identify some of the places we've stumbled, what we've learned, and how we can apply this wisdom in the new stories that are surfacing. It's also a terrific time to identify things each of us individually and collectively could have done differently, especially if we want to produce different and more positive outcomes going forward. And some of the things we can do differently now and in the time ahead to ensure a more genuinely constructive outcome that supports our individual and collective highest good. So in the questionnaire many of you completed, we asked you to respond to 3 initial statements. 1, I am optimistic about the future of America. I believe the divisions that currently exist in America can be healed, bridged, or unified, and I believe I can contribute to healing these divides. As you can imagine, the answers were varied. In answer to the first question about how optimistic you are about the future, the majority of you fell into the moderately optimistic category. And regarding the questions of whether you believe current divisions can be healed and if you can contribute to healing these divides, more of you were more optimistic and a number of you were very optimistic.
On the question that asked you to identify some of the specific ways you can commit to healing the significant divisions that exist in our nation today, divisions, unfortunately, that some in this new administration and in Congress appear intent on widening, your answers were constructive and enthusiastic. For example, the majority of you said you're going to require greater accountability on the part of our leaders. And based on what is going on in Washington and in many of our state capitals today, this is a step that certainly is long overdue. In fact, when Nathan, Sedena, and I look around at the quality of leadership being demonstrated in government, business, and in many of our institutions today, we find ourselves asking ourselves what happened to the concept of the citizen legislator and the role of the leader as servant. Yes, what we often see out there are individuals who call themselves leaders, but who are acting like paid mercenaries rather than servants of the people. Mercenaries committed to advancing not the greater good, but the private political and religious agendas of the few over the many, and certainly not fulfilling their oath to serve and protect our Constitution and represent the will of the people. When we look at the corporate sector, what we too often see are people who seem to have become so obsessed with the worship of the god of economics and profit, and that they seem blind to the fact that their primary job, in fact, the reason they're in business, is to serve the interests of customers and contribute to the well-being of the community at large. So requiring greater accountability on the part of our leaders is essential if we want new stories to emerge. And it is important to note that we need not just wait for the ballot box, but when we volunteer and contribute financially to a candidate, we can make a difference. When it comes to leaders in the private sector, we can exercise influence by impacting the company's bottom line, by how we spend our money, by how we invest in companies' stock, whether we are absentee or active participants in the governance of these organizations.
You also identified more conscious consumerism as something that you wanted to practice more often and more diligently. And this is not an insignificant thing. In fact, it's one of the pillars of what George calls the power of one. How do we practice conscious consumerism? We start by paying a lot more attention to how and where we spend our money. And this is not something the old story promotes. I think you'd agree. The old story is built on encouraging consumerism and the acquisition of more. And we've been taught to want more, to buy more, as if somehow having more stuff will make us happier, healthier, more conscious, compassionate, and more loving. And clearly, that's not true. So one of the ways that we can give birth to the new stories, and one of the ways we can practice conscious consumerism, is to ask ourselves, do we really need another gadget or widget or a new this or a new that? The second question we can ask is, what kind of company makes the products or services that we use? Are they conscious companies? Are they paying their fair share of taxes and committed to the well-being of our community, our nation, our planet as a whole? And are the ingredients these companies put into these products or services sustainable? We need to ask, do they support the human beings that make and deliver them? And do the ingredients and products and services themselves help us reduce the impacts of climate change, the physical and emotional health of human beings, and of our precious environment? So see what we mean by more conscious consumerism. It's a powerful tool that can support the birth of new stories.
Your questionnaires also let us know that you're interested in and committed to developing more and new skills and contributing them in the world around you. We believe this is also a very critical and essential component if we're going to leave behind some of the old values and limitations that have contributed to some of the failures of the old story and commit to the birth of the new stories. In fact, there's an old saying, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And I'm sure we've heard that many times, but if we believe that if we want to encourage and create new stories for a more positive, conscious, and constructive life, then we do need to learn new skills, revisit and redefine our values, and identify new goals and objectives. We need new concepts of leadership, new strategies for our own participation at demonstrating something we are now discovering, that Darwin wasn't correct, that competition was the foundation of the survival of the species. Instead, we now know that cooperation is the true law of nature. Something else we're learning, that although there are many in the world who still insist on the old paradigm of divide and conquer, in the end, we're all a lot more alike than we're different. And when we stop giving into fear and distrust and move beyond the illusion of scarcity and start understanding how much abundance there is, if we learn to stop holding and start sharing, we can truly create a positive future.
So before we look at some of the things you've indicated that you want to know more about, This is probably a great time to listen to some of the perspectives of two remarkable wisdom keepers. Grandmother Flordemayo, one of the 13 grandmothers, and Master Mingtong Gu, a delightful and gifted practitioner of the 5,000-year-old art and science of Qigong. This interview was a pleasure for Nathan and I. We recorded recently at the Wisdom Healing Qigong Center here in Santa Fe when we visited there. And when we come back, we'll talk more about the news stories and share some of the things you've shared with us about what you'd like to know more about and the kinds of support you'd like to better prepare you to participate more fully in the birth of these news stories. I want to touch on something you've already kind of answered a little bit, and then we're going to go to you, Flordemayo, is there's just a lot of conflict and confusion and divisiveness in our world right now. And what we think is that people literally need to come to higher ground. That
Absolutely.
It's time not just to weather this, but to also come in. How would you say that we could come in and to our own energy within that we're talking about and prosper spiritually, physically, emotionally, in all ways? Just some other keys to that.
Is I have to come back to the same place again, the energy, the life force, the source energy, continuously able yourself taking care of yourself, nourishing yourself, and connecting yourself in the greater, picture, greater existence of light beyond our simple, beyond our day, everyday kind of struggle.
Yeah.
So, empower yourself from that place, whatever the spiritual tradition might be, making a deep connection more purposely. The world needs healing now. So my, framework, I enjoy so much and share with everybody is looking at the world, everything, including the struggle, as part of the healing process. So when we are struggling, we feel more empowered and inspired to make a difference, but from the place of healing. So whatever happening historically complex, what's happening is complex. But if you experience it more energetically in the healing dimension, can be very simple, can be very accessible. So any moment when you open the energy of your heart, you're healing the wound, you're healing the historical hurts, you're healing the trauma, you're healing the violence that has happening over ages on the planet Earth. So in that way, you're contributing. And not only to healing of yourself, but healing of others, healing of humanity, healing of the planet.
Because healing yourself,
So
you're
beautiful.
contributing to the collective vibration, the collective energy of the planet.
Exactly.
So the biggest thing you can do is work on yourself, heal yourself,
Exactly.
open
It all
the energy
comes back.
within yourself.
So that's not the only thing you can do, because this is the foundation. If you can do that, the rest come.
Yep,
Rest come.
that's
Yeah.
so
you
beautiful.
even you're projecting the energy, when the body can hardly move anymore, but your heart can keep open, your mind can be open, so you can project in the energy out through prayers, through visualization, through any practice you feel confident, emanating that healing energy to the planet Earth. So that energy of the Earth is really collective mix, of all of us. So anything we put into this field, contributing to the function, to well-being.
Beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
And I know we both can sense that you have so much to share, to add to this
We
conversation.
can hardly wait.
Yes, and we're excited to hear your thoughts on the same subject.
Yeah.
It goes back to oneself. We can't do anything without first acknowledging, and we embrace ourselves and we bring ourselves into that place of love. Because by experiencing this, then we become natural vessels of the light. So through this, I have a grandmother lullaby that I'm going to share with everybody.
Oh, yay. I
Yay.
love that.
So this is a gentle way of bringing yourself into a place of love, which we all need. And this I received from my mother, and she received it from her mother. And it's a place where if you are in fear, if you are happy, if you're like in joy, if you're distressed, if you're angry, if you're like just are so divided with everything that's going on around you, you can come back and center yourself. So I'm going to share this with everybody. So we embrace our heart. And basically what we're doing is, it is the hands of the mother that is holding us. Whether it's your mother, your grandmother, your auntie, your sister, it doesn't matter. It's all of that. We allow ourselves to become one with the healing energy, with the love and the healing energy that is present within us. It is always there, but we're bringing that memory back into our being. We could rock ourselves. We could smile to the Creator. We could think of all of those things and bring it into your heart. And know that it's going to be all right, that it's going to be okay. Regardless of what it is that is in our minds right now. It's between ourselves and all of the beauty that is around us. Ourselves and all creation. We're the children of the earth. When the beloved mother was making her earthly children, all of the children and all of the little critters around the earth, she hummed when she was making us. How beautiful that is. Let's make the connection. Let's extend our umbilicus to back to the mother. Becoming one between the earth and the heavens, because we are both terrestrial children and celestial children. Blessed be, beloved mother, blessed be. Thank you.
Oh, that was so soothing. I'm crying. That was beautiful. I think we all needed that, huh? You out there
That's all it
listening?
takes. Right?
So we certainly hope you enjoyed that brief excerpt from that interview. And I have to tell you that, one, there was such a wonderful spirit that was present, you know, and it was great to see the two of you engaging with these colleagues and elders that we value so much.
It was it was a total honor I know for both of us,
Yeah.
I was so honored to be there. The two of them are just such bright lights, you know?
Right.
They really are.
Well, and they bring so much wisdom
Yeah.
and experience from
Yeah.
ancient traditions and completely different
Completely
parts of
different.
the world
Yeah.
together in kind of a unified, in a synchronistic or synergistic
Yeah.
way that makes it really special.
And that's precisely the kind of wisdom that the world needs so much
Oh,
of right now.
we need it
Not
so
the
badly.
transient, not the
Yeah.
the newcomers on the scene, not the fly-by-nights, but people, as you say, that are rooted in
Yeah.
these traditions that
Yeah.
are so deep.
Absolutely.
Just these two are so grounded, and they're masters. Well, Master Mingtong Gu, and grandmother is such a master, and so calming. Her spirit is so calming. It was a joy. It was just such a pleasure, you know.
Yeah.
We had a
absolutely.
great time with them.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah.
In the fifth section of that questionnaire, that many of you identified some things you'd like more information on and programs that support. And so we're going to take a few minutes to talk about some of those. Ways to chart a more meaningful and successful course for the future. A lot of you wanted to do that. How to lead a more sustainable life. How you can learn to accept change more readily and make it an ally instead of an adversary. How you can learn to live more consciously and age wisely. How you can make a living doing the things you love instead of having to barter your precious time and skills advancing somebody else's agenda. How you can stay more awake and play a more active role by using the power of one. So let's talk about some of those things for a few minutes, you
Okay.
know, because each of us has a slightly different perspective on what some of those things are. We know about the power of one. We've talked a little bit about that. But
Right.
living the life that you were born to live, living and doing the things that are meaningful for us, you know, instead of bartering our time for somebody else's advantage.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of the most important things that every single one of us wish we learned in school that we that we didn't. You know,
Exactly.
they taught you how to work for somebody else the rest of your life, not how to find what is your passion and meaningful to you and turn it into a successful career or a successful life endeavor. And so I think that's one of the most critical things for all of us right now at all ages to really know how to do it.
Because
Right.
it's really an underpinning to the new stories. The new stories are about how do we develop and discover our authentic purpose for being here, rather than getting in line and following a path. You know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the old story has been about, you know, let's face it, divisiveness. It's individual gain at the cost of our connection and our wholeness and our well-being and the well-being of the planet. It's just kind of been pushed aside for what can I get. And so, yeah, what you just said, what we're all saying is that this purpose and meaning that we're coming in for now, I look at this news story as a time of awakening.
Right.
And a real awakening of our hearts. You know, it's a time to just come from our hearts and enough of, you know, what can I get, but what can I give?
Yeah.
You know, and we got that actually from Flordemayo a lot and Mingtong Gu. You know, it's coming from our authenticity.
There's also this thing about living consciously and aging wisely. When you talked about conscious consumerism before, you were talking about a way that we can practice conscious living all the time. And the whole idea of aging wisely is something that our society has seemingly lost track of. You know, we tend to denigrate our elders and push them to the side instead of, as you two did in the interview with Flordemayo and grandmother, you took time to listen, and in the listening we all benefited because indeed they are repositories of that not only the traditions they represent, but this wealth of experience.
Well, and you know, I was fortunate that, you know, at age 15, 16, that I had an elder come into my life who had a lot of wisdom, willing to share, and I was very interested and started listening and questioning, and I've been that way the rest of my life until this day, that I really value wisdom and experience over almost anything else. Quick little story. I just ran my first 35-mile ultra marathon, and I ended up running with a man who was 58 years old, who's been running for 22 years, and this was his 260th ultra marathon.
Oh my gosh.
So here's a guy with a lot of experience and wisdom. So let me. So we talked for an hour and a half. I picked his ear, and also a 30-year successful marriage. So he gave me a master's class on happy marriage and ultra running, and he was really interested in health. So he says he got a master class from me in health and eating properly. So it's just that, I think that respect that I think a lot of the younger generation seem to kind of let up. Many generations, I think, is kind of let by the wayside, and it's time to revive that in this new story.
The important thing, I'm sorry, but one thing you said that I want to mark is that it's not just the wisdom of the elder, but it's the receptivity of the younger.
Yeah.
And that's a mutual thing, because we have to learn from each other, as you did, But that curiosity, that willingness to listen, is a thing that needs to be present in the new story. Because it's the thing that will keep us honest and authentic.
Yeah, I think it's just an awakening that's so needed with all of us and in our world. And we can, like what you just did, and what we did with Flordemayo and Mingtong, is we can awaken to the wisdom. And it was such a pleasure that they wanted to get our perspective on things. So like George said, it's this amplifying of each other's gifts and talents. And all it is just being aware and awake and willing to live life in a different way. I think we've really been automated. We've been automated, to be a certain way, and as I can't remember. Don Miguel Ruiz says domesticated. That we're domesticated like animals. We're told to act in a certain way, and we have to change it. It's time to change it.
Yeah, and just a tiny piece on that. I think a big part of it is learning how to distinguish and determine what part of our consciousness is still living in the old story. And that takes courage, but it also takes support. I mean, it's not easy to try to find in your own awareness, your own emotions, and your own mental experiences. What is it that is still keeping you attached in the old story? But we have to find where that is and what it is, and have to have some tools and support in helping to let it go. And then again, a path or a guideline, and again more tools and support for helping to create and live in the new story.
And do it together, which is what we're doing with Higher Ground. That's what this is all about, is giving each other support, getting feedback from everyone, and finding out how we can support you and how you can support us, and we come together as a community. That's really what we want to do here.
Good.
Yeah.
Over the last several weeks, we've been reflecting on a lot of the information you've shared with us. And we believe it's time to put our heads together with a number of other authors and experts we're privileged to know and work with, and to begin to develop a series of programs that can provide you with the kind of information and support that you've requested. We're also going to take a close look at how best to deliver these programs in formats that will best support life in these times, and especially the birth of the new stories.
So in the meantime, our next step in the Higher Ground series will be to offer you the opportunity to have a front row seat for a series of in-depth and valuable conversations that we've started with some of the leading authors and wisdom keepers of our time. These conversations are providing us with some of the insights they have to offer and the recommendations that they're advancing that are helping us to better understand how what is happening in our world today fits into a broader historical perspective, and what we can do to stay balanced and contribute constructively at this time.
So we thought you might like to benefit directly from these conversations, and we're going to bring you this new Higher Ground dialogue series that you'll have the opportunity to listen to at your convenience. You also have the opportunity to have this valuable library of insights and recommendations and watch them again and again, because the reality is there's one thing about wisdom: it has a permanent shelf life. This period will also give us the opportunity to go deeper in evaluating the information and suggestions you've shared with us, so we can formulate a more comprehensive strategy for supporting the kind of future we all want.
In closing, we want to share just a few thoughts with you. Remember that for all of its challenges, this is really an extraordinary time to be alive and to be able to contribute to the birth of these new stories, in which the concepts of scarcity and lack can be replaced by those of abundance and opportunity, and in which the greatest good for the greatest number can be our goal.
These are new stories in which we move from concepts of division and separation to those of cooperation, interdependence, from selfishness to compassion.
New stories in which we move from an obsessive focus on consumption and materialism to a consciousness of sustainability, to a genuine honoring and stewardship of the natural resources, the well-being of the life forms that inhabit our planet and our habitat, so that we can leave a constructive and conscious legacy full of possibilities and opportunities for the future generations.
New stories in which we learn to become much more self-sufficient and accountable to ourselves and more responsible for the well-being of others. New stories in which we stop struggling to become someone else and start remembering that our job is to inherit our own true and authentic selves. And in this way, to learn to manifest the unique dreams that each of us has come here to this earth to manifest and to contribute to the greater good.
New stories in which each of us gets to answer the question posed by the poet Mary Oliver. Tell me, what do you plan to do with this one wild and precious thing called your life?
In closing, don't forget, if you haven't had the chance to watch Higher Ground live and fill out the questionnaire, there's still time, and we'd love to include your answers in the mix going forward. Just go to the website highergroundinstitute.com for instant access.
And please don't forget to share these free programs with people in your circle who you know can also benefit from them. And please also stay tuned for the Higher Ground dialogues. We've already begun recording these really engaging conversations full of insights and perspectives and recommendations from these wise ones who can help us all birth the new stories that will support us in living the lives we were born to live and creating a more sane and sustainable world. So for all of us, we really want to say thank you for taking time to be with us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Blessings.